All right, good morning. Welcome to Business Lens on Rapid TV. My name is Faith Dafa Joseph. As usual, of course, we get to look at different business headlines and news making the rounds in the world of finance, the economy, of course, and business. So today, let's start off with some headlines. We're talking about what's going on with the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Mr. Wale Edun. There's a lot in the news regarding his health this morning. So we get to expatiate on that just a bit and what it actually means for the economy of Nigeria if such a pivotal role is going through such issues right now in the news. And then from there, we also get to talk about, well, the GM has released the new debt figures. So we talk about, what that means. Even though the World Bank is saying that our debt to GDP ratio looks like it's coming down significantly, which is actually an improvement and a good thing for the economy. So that is also making the rounds in the headlines today. And we also get to talk about, well, the Naira holding strong. What exactly is the reason for that? Well, the BDC chairman or president, that's Adamu Gwadabe, he has a reason for this. I don't know if you agree or not, but, we're going to explore that as well. And the World Bank is complaining that our agencies get too much direct deductions, and it's not good for transparency. What is the presidency doing about this? Is there something that's going to be done? How will it help our economy? So all of that featured on, the show today. Apologies for running a bit late, but let's get to it very quickly. Let's talk about the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister for the Economy, Mr. Wale Edun, who is reportedly sick. So there were news making the rounds straight over the weekend about his health. He was said to have suffered from a stroke. That's what some newspapers are reporting. Anyway, the presidency and that's been flown abroad for treatment. The presidency has come out to deny that. Mr. Bayo Onanuga, that's the spokesperson for the presidency, has said that, well, he is indisposed, he is ill, but it is not a stroke and he's recuperating here in Nigeria. He has not been flown abroad. And there were also some news making the rounds that he is going to be replaced by the president. The presidency has come out to deny that as well, saying that he's not going to be replaced. But what does this mean exactly for the Nigerian economy? If you think about it, he is at the helm of, the fiscal reforms and policies of this particular administration. And so he's not also just the finance minister, he's also the coordinating minister of the economy. That means everything that revolves around the economy is revolving around him. But now we're getting the story that, he is ill. And what is also very interesting is that you have the IMF and World Bank, meetings, annual meetings that is starting, I think it's starting this week. He's not going to be able to make it there for that meeting. That's what news reports are saying as well. What does this mean? Although the CBN governor is said to be going, he will be representing the country with, of course, all the ministers, there as well. But this is such a pivotal role, especially when you talk about the entire economic engine of the country. And so, what is going to happen with him? Do we deserve to know much more about his health? Do we deserve to know much more about what is going on with him, considering the role that he occupies? We're not getting as much transparency. We're not getting as much reports about it. We're just being told he's indisposed, he's not feeling well, but it is not that serious. He's recuperating in Nigeria and he'll be all right. Will we know more soon? We don't know. But anyway, our thoughts go to him and we hope that he gets well soon. But of course, he's also asking for a bit of more transparency from the executives so that such a pivotal role, we know exactly what is going on with the finance minister. Anyway, stick around. There's more stories coming around. Like I said, we're going to check out a lot more headlines. After this break, we'll be back. All right, welcome back to Business Lens. And yes, I was talking earlier about the Minister of Finance and how, well, he's indisposed. That's the report. And I'm going to be asking, of course, my in-house analyst here who has joined us, Daniel Effa. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Faith.
What do you think about the story making rounds? Is it worth the conversation, really? Especially when you consider that Nigeria runs like a two-tier ministerial slot system. We have the minister and then we have, Minister of State, which some people refer to as deputy minister. So does it matter if the finance minister is indisposed at this time? Okay. I mean, his duties are going to be taking over somebody else, right?
Okay, so in bigger climes, right, it is a big issue in the sense that it has a way it plays in the market, right? But that also is a function of the role that individual plays in any conversation. So, if, for example, if it is the OPEC, if it is Bank of Japan, where we know that just a statement from these individuals can actually shake the market one way or the other. So, yes, it can if the health issue is a serious issue, right? And I think we really don't know any details yet about it. So, if it is out in the public, it means that it might really be a serious issue, right? So, what is really pivotal for investors across bodies, if he's not able to really carry out his function, because whether we like it or not, he's the coordinating minister of the economy, and even though there are systems in place that ensures that work still goes on even if he's indisposed, but continuous being as a continuous sickness or being indisposed for a long time that doesn't allow him to carry out his job will definitely have a toll on the economy. So the decision makers, investors will be like, okay, if he's very indisposed, why not just replace him on time, right? Because then your economy would almost stall if the highest individual that should be in charge of decision making, policy driving policies is not there. So that is where we need to get clarity, and we'll know, of course, as time goes by. But my own concern is, if he's not going to be carrying out his job, a very tasking one at that, on a consistent basis because of his health, it's better that someone else is announced as acting coordinator of the economy, just to ensure that those functions keep on going.
And they do not suffer.
When it's back, it can.
I mean, but then I think it's also a bit premature, because it is very early to start saying that it was just over the weekend we got the news. It's just over the weekend.
That is the thing. For the fact that it is coming out in public might necessarily mean that it has been
brewing.
Exactly, it has been there for a while. Maybe it's a month old or not. Because if it is, everybody gets sick at some point. So because then his work is tasking, right? So if he's tired and needs rest, those things are allowed. But if it is a serious issue, that is where we really need transparency. Transparency is not for us to pry into his private life, but because the role he plays in the economy is pivotal. We need to understand that if he's able to carry out his job, fantastic. If he's nothing, someone has to just replace him, basically.
Okay. Let's move on from that, basically, and talk about what the World Bank is saying. You know, we talked about the World Bank's report just last week. And another thing that they have pointed out, you know, I mean, maybe the president will come out now and say, well, we're doing something about that. The World Bank is complaining about the funding allocated to Nigeria Revenue Generating Agency, saying that it is significantly higher compared to their counterparts in other African countries. And you're looking at the fact that these agencies are revenue generating agencies. So you're looking at places like the NUPRC, you're looking at, you know, the NCS, you know, you're looking at the Nigeria Development Update, you know, you're even looking at the NNPC. These are revenue generating agencies, and yet they get deductions. It's not allocations per se, they're direct deductions that they get. So if you're looking at the figures that have been put out, you know, even for the Revenue Mobilization Allocation and Fiscal Committee, you're looking at the sort of deductions that they get. And the World Bank is like, it's not right. That not only is it very high, it also shows a lack of transparency and a lack of accountability, actually. FIRS retains 4% of all non-oil gross revenues. They retain it. So as it's coming, they're taking it, including value-added tax, right? Corporate income tax, electronic money transfer levies, as well as oil revenues excluding royalties. So they take all of that, right? Then the NCS, that's Nigeria Customs Service, they keep 7% of customs and excise revenues, right? And 2% of VAT collections. While you now have the RMAFC, they receive 0.5% of non-oil revenues as well. Okay, NDDC gets 3% of gross VAT revenues, and NUPRC retains 4% of royalties from upstream petroleum operations, right? So you're looking at all of these people that are supposed to be generating money for us. These are all the monies that they're getting. NNPC is entitled to 30% of production sharing contracts revenues as well. And the World Bank is like, your counterparts don't do things like that. I mean, if you look at places like, you know, Kenya, the Kenya Revenue Authority, they just kept between 1% and 2% of annual revenue target. And if they make more than their target, then they can get 3%. You know, but in Nigeria, it's not like that. And the World Bank is saying this should not continue, especially when you're looking at the fact that these are supposed to be revenue generating agencies as well. So why are they keeping so much money? How much money are they making for us to be entitled to these deductions? Like I said, no allocations, deductions from source. Okay,
so I think it's a faulty approach from how we set up those structures, and I think that it can't change now, right? So in fact, I think what the government has done in recent times is, okay, instead of us changing that, instead make more money, right? So maybe this will motivate you to make more money, and that's why you've seen these agencies are so big in terms of their overhead costs. You begin to wonder, how much work do you really do in terms of service delivery that allows you to have so much workforce? It's just like a private business with over 100,000 staff, and real actual work is done by maybe 25% of you guys. So this can only be adjusted, right, if we can get to a point whereby technology is really adopted by these agencies, right? So basically what they've done is they remained at manual level. Again, manpower is now essentially needed. Of course, we understand that not all these funds are going into, but a chunk of these agencies you mentioned are probably the highest paid agencies. When you look at what and that's the demand to be in those agencies by Nigerians is on the high side. If they come up with any what's the word, any employment, anything, you see how much. So those, what they've done is, okay, where technology will solve in other countries, you are putting humans there, right? So it is difficult for you to get these things sorted if you do not enforce the need for technology. For example, so what's happening with immigration? Suddenly, the number of staff required is no longer, because then it's almost instant. The process is seamless, is faster. So you realize that technology would take out 4, 5 people, 6 people out of the equation. So what I think should happen at the end of the day is, the government is interested in really bringing these numbers down, right? Because of global standard and what World Bank is saying, which is this 1 to 3% can be pushed into something else. You get, then concerns has to start around where can technology fit in, right? But
one of the things that the World Bank also pointed out is that, I mean, in places like South Africa and Uganda, they do a lot of this, through parliamentary allocation, so not necessarily through deductions. Okay. And so what the World Bank was also pointing out is that this also shows a lack of budget discipline, because ideally whatever money is spent by government agencies should be allocated by the National Assembly, because that's the purview of the National Assembly. So if you are skipping that and telling all of them that you can just deduct from source, there's this budgeting discipline going on. Anyway, the finance minister, Mr. Wale Edun, well, he came out to say that they are working on halting these deductions, right? I don't know how they're going to be able to do it. I think they might have to now go through parliamentary, acts as well, because some of these things are actually supported by acts by the National Assembly, so they have to probably go through all of that to halt it. But he says that they're trying to halt the deduction of the cost of revenue collection paid to these agencies. Whether they will halt it totally or maybe they would, reduce it, they're going to try to do something.
But at the end of it, I think we need to first figure out why was it done in the first place. I think it was not done out of the fact that budgeting discipline. I think it was more of a performance-related motivation-related numbers. Why am I saying that? Is that because they are deducting from source and a certain percentage, right? The revenue agency can look at what is potential of how much we can make in a year.
But they still get allocations.
But that is where the real issue comes, in terms of why do they still get allocations when, right, they already have a certain percentage that comes to them. I think that is where the real waste comes in. I don't think the waste comes in from the 3% or the 1%. I think it is the extra allocations they get, right? Because if you're going to fully manage your operations, right, then it should be from whatever comes in. So if whatever comes in is not high enough, then that should determine what kind of number of employees you have, kind of systems you employ to ensure that you carry out your duty properly. So, for example, this year the president said by August we've done over 20 trillion, for example, from non-oil revenue. So that means from customs, so let's say, for example, the Federal Revenue Service, for example, are done about 10 trillion, right? That performance should be rewarded, and that is the whole idea of the percentage being given in the first place. So what I only have issues with that is that because these revenue agencies play a certain role in the way our economy is, right? When you start giving them performance related conversation, it makes it look like you're trying to make them to go and hustle for more funds from an economy. What kind of economy is it? What kind of conversation is that? So it should be more of it's more of us getting to a point whereby these businesses happen normally because the government has created policies that stimulate the economy. Then these revenues come in. It shouldn't be, no, you must.
Because that's why you see customs, they'll tell you, you know, they're introducing this levy and that levy and that levy. So, and they're always very proud to come and tell you, we exceeded our target or we collected more revenue than this. Most of the times it's just, you know, they know that they're going to get some deductions if they get to a certain level, but then you are strangling your economy because the people you are taking all those levies from, they don't even have the money to give to you.
So I think it's a phase by phase thing. I think where we are right now, the era we are right now is first, how do we make a lot of money, and by the time we add the new tax laws next year, let's see what it will look like. If for example another revenue gets to a point whereby we are making 30 to 40 trillion on a yearly basis. Then with oil revenue maybe over 50-60 trillion and it's consistent, then we can now move to the phase of how do we reduce waste, particularly from whatever we are allocating to these guys plus revenue. Then those concerns start coming up. But until then, I think let's just take one after the other. Let's this new phase work first. Let's see how much this current government can begin to like properly make when it comes to non-oil revenue, and how these funds can also be channeled into stimulating the economy. Then we will now go to that, because if you're looking at Nigeria as a case study in terms of waste, it is everywhere. It's everywhere.
The case study for waste. Anyway, let's talk about you know, currency very quickly. We have seen the Naira perform, you know, really well. I mean, everybody can admit that. Now we're hovering below 1,500, which you know a lot of people didn't see happening, you know, before. But now we're getting there. We're even getting close to 1,400. So what it means is that Naira has been performing, you know, very strongly. Now there are different reasons why that is happening. Some will point out external reserve. Some will point out the CBN's monetary policy. But the BDCs have something to say. And every time, you know, the BDC comes out to say something, it's always very interesting to me, because I'm like, okay, what's the goal behind this?
They're no longer as popular as they were.
So they need to say something.
Exactly.
And it's Adamu Guadabe, who is the president for the BDC, he's trying to give us the reason why Naira is performing, you know, strongly. One of the things he says is that, you know, there's not a lot of speculation going around anymore, and that you can't really call it a parallel market anymore, because if you also look at the difference, the disparity between, you know, the official window and this, that is not a lot. So at the end of the day, you can't really call it a parallel market. You prefer to call it like a retail market. And then he also now has pointed out the fact that Nigerians are no longer just holding the dollars. I don't know if that's true. You know, that there's not a lot of speculation. So Nigerians will buy dollars just to hold it, and that is reducing drastically. So that there's a lot more faith we put in the Naira. Would you agree to that?
Yeah, to some extent, yes. I think to some extent, yes. However, you know, this is the conversation with Nigeria. Nigeria has two sectors, right? The formal sector and the informal sector. The informal sector can be a lot of things, whether it is corruption funds, whether it is illicit funds, whether it is people that would not necessarily register whatever they have. So that space has always been the chaotic space where the speculators really thrive in. Because now we have a market, and that has always been the conversation. Set up a structure, right? That we have the levels. It is not. It won't be too. It won't be very. There won't be very big incentive for you to hold on to dollar. As long as there is get a unified market, the conversion is easy, and that is what we've seen, right? It didn't take a lot of the things. Just took policies, right? And what in fact I'm not even sure we've heard CBN supplied dollars to BCs in recent times. So it means that it has always been a function of the structure, right? The structure will now reduce the volatility, because the volatility has always been what people take advantage of, right? The structure was creating the gaps, right? As soon as that was sorted, then move to the volatility, and it has not really been volatile. In fact, that was why I was complaining, like, why are we doing almost 20% in a week or 25% in a week? We get for movement, because that is volatility. That is what speculators thrive on, and that is not what we want, particularly for our exchange, because we want to really export a lot in the nearest future. So the BDC head is correct in terms of what has happened, right? However, what I also feel is that it's a two-way thing when it comes to currency conversations. I heard someone saying that dollar too has been struggling. So of course it's a two-way thing. the dollar has not been the strongest in 2025. And I think it's a deliberate attempt from Trump. Trump has always been.
He always has not believed in the
so
dollar being too strong.
Exactly.
So I don't think that's something to.
Normally, by statistics, whenever your stock market is doing very well, your currency would be weak. It's just an inverse proportion, just like that, and that is what has happened, right, with the dollar. They have seen considerable level of gains with S&P 500, with the Dow Jones and all. So you can expect that the currency would be against most of the major currencies across board. The dollar has been weak. However, for us, it's really a different case because our own is more of a supply issue, right? So the CBN has also done that in terms of stability in.
And then you look at our external reserves, they're rising.
Also,
I mean, you can actually also maybe point to our higher crude oil production and then, growth of our external reserves. Those have also played a key role,
so we can't even say very high because then we've not really done that.
Well,
we've
high
not
compared
done
to
that.
where we are before.
Yeah, even when we've done that, the prices have not been so high also. Right, so what we've simply done this year, I think is more about the exports. You remember that Dangote Refinery has done a lot more exports. So when you look at the export numbers, we are getting a lot of more bills, right, from those exports rather than even from the crude oil sales. So that is a big addition to what we've been doing in recent time, which is fantastic. This is what we've been hoping for. We really want it to be spread across board, because what happens in Nigeria is that a lot of what we do is skewed towards a certain direction, so it doesn't spread and people don't take advantage of it. So now when it comes to the volatility around our currency, I think there is none. It's not a business anymore. It's not a business anymore. So anybody still holding, just go and sell off and take your naira into your bank account and look for one instrument to give you a very high.
But another thing that they mentioned very quickly before we move on from that is saying that fintechs have also made it much easier for people. Transactions are easier, and a lot of people don't have a need for their domiciliary account anymore. Do you find that to be true?
Yes, it is true. I'm not sure I've seen anybody in recent times that really wanted to use their domiciliary account. I think the cost of maintaining one and it is not as seamless as it should be. I think someone was talking about the fact that they had an issue. We now allow we used to use your cards outside of the country, and someone said they had issues with one of the major banks, and someone else said, see a certain fintech, use a fintech and solve the problem. So that's one of the reasons why I complain about what fintech has done, particularly in the banking sector. We've not really seen the fintech really solve the existing problems. Solve the real problems that we have. What they've done is trying to balance up the deficiencies of the traditional bank. And that is not what we need in going forward. Because what happens at the end of the day is that Nigerians now spend more to just walk around cash, just cash alone. We spend so much more. Locally, because of lack of function of ATMs, we have POS that will charge you to get your naira. Now, foreign sending money, receiving money, same thing, because banks are not doing what they are meant to. And this is not what happens in major clients. You don't see
because now fintechs, they're stepping into this role, but then you have to pay for it.
Yeah, of course.
So a lot of the times when you look at how much you have to pay for that,
and the availability.
Exactly, it's quite a lot. So why not just solve the problem with traditional banks and let fintechs look for other issues to tackle? Exactly. Anyway, the Central Bank is talking about adopting AI for monetary policies, right? According to the CBN Governor Cardoso, he said it is for forecasting majorly, and they cannot be left behind. It is the AI revolution. So I mean, how can the CBN not also be part of this? So they're adopting it for monetary policies, but he says it's going to majorly be for forecasting. So maybe being able to predict, what the response will be if they take this direction or take that direction, and being able to streamline it better. That sounds like a good deal, right?
Yeah, it is. It is. I think when it comes to the AI conversation, I just feel like we should have been way ahead of this way ahead, right? CBN adopting is fantastic, but what happens? How about our research organizations? How about our schools, right? Because that is where it starts from. The best models are created at that level, because then students are able to research and give you models that you can employ get to you. So what we shouldn't, in the next phase of this AI revolution, we shouldn't be users, we should be creators, because that is where the real influence and money is, right? So while the CBN is using this to forecast, to create scenario planning and all that, fantastic, right? It will definitely solve a lot of things, but how do we get, because for example the finance space, which is where the CBN is, why are you not encouraging research? You get not just from your department of research, but from research organizations, the schools. Why not encouraging, okay, create models for finance using AI, or create AI models that can solve. That is where you should start from. That is where it is easier for us to, next phase of conversations, we can now create products or create models, economic models that can actually fit in or help us as a country based on our own issues. Because whatever whatever AI you're bringing on board is using whatever it has been configured with from advanced countries. We have different peculiar issues. We have different issues. Our economy is largely informal. How do you create models that fits into that? So those are the things that I think that, yes, even if you're talking about it now, it should be more about developmental conversations. So how we're also going to be encouraging AI to also be to allow us to create models that can also help
I think
us.
that's where forecasting comes in, so we'll see how that helps in our next MPC, right?
Exactly.
Since they've adopted it. Let's go for a very quick break. When we return, we'll talk about the debt conversation, right? The DM was finally released figures, 152 trillion. Where does that leave us? Stay with Business Lens here on Rapid TV.
Nigeria's economy, the global markets, what does it all mean for you? From stock market insights to global financial news you need to know. From Wall Street to the main street and of course, the marketplace.
Get the answers you need every week on Business Lens with me, Faith Dafa-Joseph, as I bring into focus the stories, strategies, and shifts shaping our economy. No angle is missed as I talk about the business, the people, patterns, and possibilities behind them. Welcome to the Business Lens.
Rapid TV, rooted in truth, driven by impact.
From the soil beneath our feet to the tables across the world, agriculture is the heartbeat of Nigeria's future. Yet challenges persist: limited finance, outdated methods, policy gaps, and untapped opportunities. The Green Line is here to change that. A groundbreaking weekly television feature that connects policy with practice, farmers with markets, and innovation with impact. We dig deep into the full agricultural value chain, from land preparation to mechanization, financing, food preservation, exports, and beyond. The Green Line isn't just a show, it's a national development platform. Join me every Friday at 11 a.m. only on Rapid TV, Star Times Channel 176, and online at www.rbnradiotv.com.
Our Business Lens on Rapid TV, and we've been talking about what's going on in the world of economy for Nigeria. Of course, I'll be doing that alongside my analyst here, Daniel Efa. Let's talk about, the issue of Nigeria's debts. The DMO has released very detailed figures this time around. In fact, there's a breakdown, subnational, and national. And so they've done a good job. I remember last week you calling them out that the DMO has not released the figures. Well, maybe they heard you. They finally released figures. And Nigeria's public debt has risen to 152.40 trillion naira, which is interesting because as at March, end of March, we had 149.39 trillion naira. So that means that, and this figure is from the end of June. So between March and June, we went up from 149 to 152, basically adding maybe about 3 trillion to this debt stock once more. And this is the latest figure that the DMO has released, right? And then they broke it down. Of this debt stock, the federal government has 92%. 92%. Subnationals have much less, if you look at the figures. One of the things that the DMO also pointed out was that they did a conversion for naira. If you look at using the CBN's, figures for June, that was 152. They're about 1,502, something. That was what they used. That was the figure they used to get this. And what this also now shows is that our debt stock is very reliant on currency depreciation and fluctuations, because debt stock rose in naira terms because of currency depreciation, right? But then you're also looking at how much was added. Even if you look at it from the dollar equivalents, there was still quite a bit added to the portfolio. And the federal government has 92% of this debt stock. Let's talk about that for a minute.
Okay, so when we have that conversation and they tell you that it didn't rise in dollar terms, it only rose in naira terms. What they also tend to forget is that remember that you're also paying interest, a very high interest on the naira terms, right? So so it is way more. So when you see a 1 billion, for example, a 1 trillion naira, you're in debt stock, you should add around maybe 20% to it. That's 1.2 trillion. That's what the real value. That's what the real interest on that is, and that is depending on the year of maturity. That is almost a yearly amount on that particular debt stock. So no matter how you consider it, it is expensive, right? And we keep going for it. So what we've done, and I think by as it stands, we probably get to probably at 160 trillion by the end of the year, or even more, right? Because by the time the figures are updated for July till date, we probably hit 160 already. By then, I think we heard that the government is trying to still do another 2 point something billion or 3 billion borrowing. So that might total it to around 165. My conversation is simple. We've probably done unprecedented numbers in terms of revenues generation in
so we're still borrowing so
years.
much.
Exactly. So why are we still pushing a lot, right? So because and that is why we also need more data, particularly from the Ministry of Finance, in terms of what was our budget performance. We need to know where are we, because
I mean, didn't the president come out to say that budget performance was really great?
But that is just the amount. We need figures, because now we are practically running almost three budgets. Right
actually,
now.
yes.
Yes, so because 2024, we are still running 2024,
extended
2025.
It, yes.
2025 is still and
yes,
a
supplementary for 24. That's also still running.
So that's 3 budgets running. So we need to know, because we can't, because now suddenly you see that the commission is no longer budget to revenue anymore. Is now budget to GDP. Why?
Well, so let's talk about the fact that when the World Bank released their report last week, you talked about Nigeria's debt to GDP, getting really low, is lower than 40% now. So that sort of also gives the federal government some sort of reprieve to say, well, our debt to GDP is low, so maybe we can borrow more.
No. That is wrong, because it's not like the GDP again really explains how the Nigerian market is. It doesn't, right? So because when you look at GDP, you're still looking at GDP per capita. So it is a very mischievous conversation, right? Because what we should be using is in terms of why do we need to know, right? Why do we need to know the effect of your debt on your economy? Is it not because you need to know what government has in its hands to be able to implement policies, to be able to build infrastructure. So why then use GDP? GDP is the total services produced in a country at a particular time. So why use GDP that has nothing to do with the government per se? Government is just GDP is just the total size of the economy.
So should we be looking at debt to revenue?
Yeah, because then you are paying service interest on this debt you are incurring. So what does your interest payment look like? Is what we want to see, which is debt to revenue. So why is conversation around debt to revenue no longer there? Because as at 3 years ago, last time we knew what our debt to revenue at a point it was about 100%. So what is it now? And that is what we need to know, and that is the real conversations. And I don't know how we've been able to evade it from 2024 till date.
And it's interesting that even the DMO did not tell us.
No, the DMO, of course, the DMO is just about the debt management office. Just to talk about.
Well, they can tell us what the debts to revenues. Let them tell us how much percentage for our interest rate.
That means they must know the revenue. And revenue is what we are hiding at the moment.
Are we hiding it? President said we made a lot of money.
The president just told us.
Okay.
So is yesterday now? What the president said?
Well, but let me just quickly say this as we wrap up. External debts, we're looking at in dollar terms, 46.98 billion. That was what it was in June, and that's up from 45.98 billion in March. So even that was added to. This is for June, so it'll be interesting to see what Q3 is going to show us.
We are on a debt collection spree, and that is why all the
and policies, remember our bonds also
yes,
make up. So we're very exposed globally to global volatility as well.
So you see why even the interest rate conversation cannot come down anytime soon, because we are caught up in that conversation where do we need to go dovish in our monetary policy stance or just remain okay. So until we see significant decline in inflation, we are not going to push another interest rate anytime soon, not for any reasons, because we are, when it comes to the borrowing conversation, we are well positioned. We make more money to pay interest, and we can collect.
And on that note, we're going to wrap it up. He said we're well positioned. I don't know how the federal government feels about that, but there should be some sort of accountability, especially the National Assembly, looking at all of these loans and looking at where they go to. We've not had a commission about loans in a while. Last time we had a loans commission about loans and what they do and
because
where they go to. But right now, we're not getting a lot of that transparent conversation. And I think it's about time National Assembly does their job and let us know where that is concerned. Anyway, thanks for being a part of the show today. On the other side, of course, we have the news coming up at 12. So stick around for that, and you can, of course, rewatch this episode on our YouTube. As well, my name is Faith. I will do this again on Thursday. Good morning.